Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Alexio Picco. I'm the Managing Director of the Circle Group, and I'm very happy to have you here for the second event of the Connecting You Insights set of events. We are going to discuss this afternoon about a very, very hot topic, let me say. It's about the use of hydrogen in ports and maritime transport. We have really a bunch of top-level experts together with us this afternoon to discuss about it. As you understand and as you perceive, there is a lot of interest and push about the use of hydrogen in general. This is one key, let's say, industrial potential revolution of the next decade. But of course, use of hydrogen in different transport means or in different industries is not exactly the same. And maritime transport has certain specificities for which the use of hydrogen could be, a little bit difficult to be used immediately. And there are also other fuels that alternative fuels that are on the stage now and coming. So being now someone to take the decision to invest in a new ship and that could stay on the market for 25 years is not that easy at all. That is why we brought together this set of experts to have this clear understanding of the situation. So we have three executive vice presidents of three very big industrial players of energy and let's say ports and certification society. We have Cosma Panzacchi, executive vice president, president of the business unit Hydrogen, the SNAM. We have Stefano Socci, executive vice president, transport infrastructure consulting and design, RINA, and Massimo De Benedetti, vice president, research of innovation of Fincantieri. So we have the different perspectives. And then at the second part, we have a port that is already investing in H2, in hydrogen. We have Joseph Sanz Argent, that is responsible for an R&D project called H2 Ports that is going to present this in detail. And then to close the overall vision of the European Commission, Antoine Katiewski, DG Move, that is going to, let's say, present us a little bit the vision in terms of alternative fuels in maritime transport, in particular, the development of the Fuel EU Maritime Initiative. So thanks for joining us, for the participants. Please, for the speakers, let's try to stay in 10-12 minutes because we want to have also a bit of time at the end for questions, for Q&A. And first, I leave the floor to Cosma Panzacchi, Executive Vice President SNAM, Business Unit Hydrogen. The floor is yours, Mr. Panzacchi.
Well, thank you, Alexio, and thanks to everyone today connected in the current presentation. It's a great pleasure to be here and to be able to discuss today this exciting topic. I will spend, given the fact that I will be followed by two experts on the downstream part of the value chain in the maritime applications, I will actually focus a bit during my presentation on the infrastructure behind it and what we're doing at SNAM to actually study and upgrade this infrastructure going forward. I think this is very important because in any case, even maritime plays will be inevitably system plays, and therefore we will always need to have an ecosystem of players around the table to develop effectively the H2 maritime ecosystem. So without further ado, let me move quickly on what SNAM is doing in this space. Well, first of all, why SNAM is working in this space. As you might know, SNAM is the incumbent TSO, transmission system operator, in the gas sector in Italy, but it's also active in other geographies across the world, Greece, Austria, France, and recently with our acquisition of Galaxy, also in the Emirates as a junior partner together with ADNOC. Over time, our strategy has focused more and more on decarbonization, and therefore we have invested progressively in sustainable mobility, and on top of sustainable mobility, new investments also in renewables, so biomethane, and more recently also in efficiency and renewables connected to efficiency. Within this scope, hydrogen is clearly plays a key role, because in our view, hydrogen is the natural bridge between renewable production and energy needs on a longer time horizon than the typical simultaneous utilization of rest-produced electricity and consumption of those electrons. And within that particular space, why is SNAM looking at hydrogen today? Well, first of all, it's not true that we have started to look at hydrogen only today, but SNAM has been looking at the hydrogen space, studying the hydrogen space for the last 3 years. It's important to highlight, in our view, that the core element for hydrogen ecosystem development is that hydrogen will need to be low carbon, but we are neutral towards discussions between the different so-called colors of hydrogen. We believe that in order to decarbonize fully and quickly important sectors of the economy that may rely on very thin margins, we will also need to have blue hydrogen within the space of solutions, and not only pure green hydrogen produced by using pure renewables. Within this space, there are 3 reasons why we are now focusing even more on hydrogen, and we have created at the end of last year a business unit, and in the coming investor presentation at the end of November, hydrogen will feature prominently. And the 3 reasons are that, first of all, hydrogen production capacity is ready to take off. The cost of hydrogen production, thanks to the double compounded effect of the decrease in renewable costs and decrease in electrolyzers costs, is now in the order of 4 to 5 euros per kilo of produced green hydrogen, already in several parts of Europe, and this could go down to between 2 and 3 euros per kilo very, very quickly. This makes a number of applications, especially in the space of transportation, already in the money today. The second point is that, of course, there's a widely spread support for hydrogen applications, not only in Europe, I should say. If one starts to read the presidential platforms in the United States, it's clear also that hydrogen will play a key role in the coming years, whatever the results of the upcoming elections. And this is very interesting, because this brings us to the third point, which means that a supportive regulatory system will accelerate the evolution and the takeoff of demand sectors across the economy. This is particularly relevant when it comes to the maritime sector, because as we will move into a system where globally we will see regulatory support for hydrogen, I'm thinking here, for example, about Japan, I'm thinking about the United States, Europe, and even the Emirates. International trade of hydrogen will become more and more important, and therefore hydrogen will become relevant not only for the decarbonization of the maritime sector per se, but also the maritime sector will become a crucial bridge in international hydrogen trade. What are we doing today at SNAM in order to enable this? Well, first of all, we are looking at our own infrastructure as it is today. And we are, together with other 10 TSOs across Europe, we have been studying about the level of readiness of our own infrastructure in order to ingest, if you want, hydrogen and distribute, of course, hydrogen that could be produced both in Europe and outside Europe. And the results are interesting and striking in the sense that with a relatively limited amount of capital, between 30 approximately and 60 billion euros accumulated across Europe between now and 2040, we could create a hydrogen backbone that could serve hydrogen needs from Palermo up to Gothenburg, from Huelva down to Prague. So basically, we could serve a vast amount of the current hydrogen needs, but also the current diesel and methane needs for other types of applications, both in transport and industrial uses. Of course, the interesting point here is that if you look at what we are doing concretely as SNAM within the space, we're basically doing three things. One thing is that we are investing in technologies. It will be crucial to bring down the cost of hydrogen also in the maritime sector, to develop and invest in new technologies. You might have seen that SNAM has invested in an electrolyzers company called ITM Power in the last month. But also we are looking at other very promising technologies to upgrade our infrastructure, but also to use, of course, hydrogen downstream, among which also technologies to use hydrogen in the maritime sector. The second pillar on which we're working is help the system grow. So we have been working with partners in Italy and outside Italy. Here we have the port of Valencia today. We are working with Enagas on a cross-European IPCI project on a hydrogen called Green Cranes, where also maritime could play a crucial role. And third, we are working on what we call system design. So it will be very, very important at European level and at single country level to have the proper regulatory framework to allow for investments in this sector. Again, also in the maritime area. From this point of view, an important element to have in mind is also the recovery fund, and SNAM, among the different projects that will be presented in the recovery fund, is also operating on and proposing solutions on the area of infrastructure, among which are also, of course, green ports. Just to conclude my very brief presentation today, why do we believe that SNAM is in a position today to help this transition? Well, first of all, because already 70% of our infrastructure in Italy, as it is hydrogen ready, fully hydrogen ready, and thanks also to substitutions, we are pragmatic but positive on this percentage coming up in the coming years. Second, we have changed all our procurement standards from this year onwards. So everything that we now buy is 100% hydrogen ready. And also we are investigating together with the Polytechnic of Turin and in France with our control company Teréga on a different geological formation, high or I should say large-scale underground storage solutions. This will be very, very important when it comes to a fully developed system where the swing in demand that could come from industrial uses will need to be balanced by a resilient infrastructure. So I'll stop here and I'll let the floor to my fellow experts today.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Panzacchi. First of all, to maintain the time frame, and it was very clear presentation, a very understandable frame in which you are working as an important, let's say, player of the sector with potential also to exploit, of course, in the maritime sector. So let's go to the perspective of one of the most important certification society. So we go to Stefano Socci, Executive Vice President, Transport Infrastructure Consulting Design of RINA. So Stefano, the floor is yours.
I don't know if you can see my presentation.
Not really.
Not yet, Stefano.
Yeah, I didn't receive the.
Please turn on your camera before. Thanks. Okay, perfect.
Okay. Good afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you. Very good.
Okay.
Thank you.
So first of all, thank you very much to you, Alexio, for organizing this meeting, to Cosma for the very deep introduction, and to all the attendees. As Cosma was saying, hydrogen is a problem that has to be solved by all the value chain, and of course, shipping, as any other industry, has to be connected to a specific market. It's a specific market, but has to be connected to the overall industry, as we will see. So first of all, I would like to give you just an idea what is the impact from the shipping on the emission of greenhouse gases. Shipping represents, as of today, 3% of the annual global greenhouse gases emission on a CO2 basis. But considering that our economies grow and our GDP will grow, IMO, the International Maritime Organization, is saying that this could grow between 50 and 250%. So it's a very important growth of this emission by 2050. And but we also need to understand what kind of vessel are more important, or where we should focus it, because as we will see from these two graphs, the large and very large vessels that are mainly the vessel for goods transport represents only 20% of the global shipping fleet in terms of number of vessels, but they represent 85% of the emission on a global basis. So for sure, those are the vessels on which the impact for the decarbonization should be focused at the beginning. Another trend that I think that is important to say, as also Cosma was mentioning, is that we need an infrastructure, and the infrastructure has to be also analyzed by two factors. One, that we forecast that the size of the vessel will grow in the future, so they will need more volume of fuel to travel. But as of today, there are only 7 ports that are responsible for 60% of all bunkering sales globally. So as we will see later, some of the alternative fuels require higher volume. And as we know, space on the ship is a very important and critical element. So probably it's not that the transition will affect the infrastructure by itself, but also the way that the vessel will be operated. The IMO, that, as I was saying, is the International Maritime Organization, sets a very challenging objective, for which by 2050, all the emission by the shipping should be reduced 50% compared to the baseline of 2008. And this is a very challenging objective if we consider the growth that we have seen before. We need to say that when IMO puts some target, give us some suggestion on how to reduce. LNG was one of the alternatives. And so far, hydrogen is in the picture, but is not yet fully integrated in terms of rules and application. To achieve this, it has to also to be said that to achieve this important target is not only the fuel that we need to look at, but there is also the improvement, because we want to have ships that are more efficient, but also as an operational level, we need to improve. Otherwise, it will be very difficult to achieve those targets. I had only 10 minutes, so I will go very fast on which are in this moment alternative fuels and which are the barrier to overcome. LNG, as we all know, has taken the stage for the last 10 years, and the industry has seen a strong investment on ships to be converted on LNG. Then there are biofuels that also are taking some space. There are the electric storage energy or battery, but of course those can be only used, or up to now can be only used for short distances. Then there is the category that we call e-fuels, that are hydrogen, methanol, or ammonia. And for these, we should mainly concentrate on, let me say, green hydrogen or products that are obtained from renewable font of electricity. Otherwise, of course, it can be a transition, but will be not a definitive changes to achieve the IMO objective. Then there are also a lot of studies that are taking consideration of gas blending even on board of ship. So the diesel or heavy fuel oil plus hydrogen, or LNG plus hydrogen. Which are the barriers to overcome? First of all is the availability. We need to have a complete new infrastructure depending on the fuel that we select. And it's not only the infrastructure, but it's also the quantity that is very important. We will have an impact on the health, safety, and environmental, because when we change the technology, we will have technical issues in terms of efficiency and how to retrofit or design new vessel, but it's also a matter of security. And of course, hydrogen is a green carrier, but is also can be also very dangerous. There is all the connection to the logistic chain. There is the issue of cost. It's a competitive market, and costs are very important. It has to be kept in a very high consideration. There is the availability of rules and requirement. And the last but not the least, there is also social perception, because as we have seen sometime when we talk about even when we talk about natural gas, there was a perception that it can be dangerous. So sometimes, even if it was a greener solution from heavy fuel, from the community, it has been seen, or it could be seen as a threat. So going more in detail on the e-fuels, so the fuel that can be obtained through hydrogen, obtained by green electricity or electricity from renewable. Methanol is the one that is most advanced. Of course, there are still emission of CO2, but are less, and there are no emission of sulfur oxides and nitrogen oxides. Methanol in the past years was used mainly for fuel cell and smaller vessel, but lately, as an example, we also know about the Stena vessel. There are a certain number that are commercial vessels that are in operation, and they are using methanol with the available marine technology. Let me also say that it's a technology that allow not too expensive retrofitting for the ship. Even in terms of infrastructure, since methanol is widely used and available, we all already know how to treat it. We have an experience on how to transport and handling it. So this facilitates in terms of bunkering requirements. And there is also a fact that at ambient temperature, methanol is liquid. So even part of the existing infrastructure for bunkering can be used because it does not require a pressurized tanks. Hydrogen, for sure, this is what we all looking at. The green hydrogen is completely free of any kind of emission, or in any case, the blue hydrogen, if connected with the carbon capture and utilization, can also be very beneficial. Hydrogen can be used to power a fuel cell, or to be used as a fuel in internal combustion engine. Eventually, also, as we were seeing, connected to in dual fuel engines with diesel or LNG. This has been a very late a development that is coming up in the last days. While for the use of as a power fuel cell, we already have some vessels that are running with a fuel cell, but are mainly pilots project or small vessels, and probably, as we will see, Fincantieri is working on one of these projects. There are also other applications that we are taking in consideration, including the use of gas turbine or to use internal combustion engine and fuel cell incorporated. Up to now, there is a question mark on the cost of H2, but as I was saying at the beginning, a lot will depend on what the overall industry will do, because the shipping industry might benefit from the development of the hydrogen industry overall. Relating to the shipping industry, also ammonia is playing a very important role. Even ammonia can be used in directly as an internal combustion engine or as a fuel cell. The importance of ammonia is that there are a lot of companies that in this moment are studying how to use ammonia in the two-stroke engine, that are the engine that are used for long trades, and it seems that there might be an application. Of course, if not using a fuel cell, ammonia creates no carbon, but there are nitrous emission, so we need a scrubber to select and to catalyze this emission. Compared to hydrogen, ammonia presents some advantages, and first of all, it does not require cryogenic temperature or very high pressure to be stored as a liquid, and also ammonia is widely used as a commodity in this moment. So the bunkering and the storage infrastructure will require some modification, but maybe not as big as for hydrogen. But those are theoretical consideration. Then we need to see the application on board of a vessel. And as we can see from this table, we can, if we look at the second column, in which we see the energy density, we see that the energy density of hydrogen ammonia is very high compared to the marine gas oil or LNG. But as I was saying before, on a ship, the volume is always a critical factor. And unfortunately, those fuels, they have a volumetric density that is very low compared to traditional fuel. And this is an issue. This issue will have impact in some of the shipping design. First of all, has to be stored in fuel tanks that are cylinder formed, and we cannot use the normal vessel or shipping tanks that are customized or work around the shipping structure, and this means another loss of volume. We will need some equipment for the fuel preparation, as well as some catalytics on the exhaust of the engine. If we are considering some, as we are doing in some cases, to store the hydrogen in metal hydrates, we will need the bottle racks and also some modification on the internal combustion engine. Of course, if we're looking at the fuel cell, this will change completely the design of the ship, or at least for the space of the engine, because we need to substitute or partially substitute the engine with the fuel cell. As also Cosma was saying, we need, if the industry wants to go ahead, a clear framework on our regulation. Unfortunately, I have to say that we are not progressing very much. The IMO meeting due to the COVID pandemic has been postponed. So we will expect to have approved in November 2020, so in this day, the first interim guideline for the safety of ship using methyl alcohol, while we will have to wait another year to have the interim guideline for the safety of ship using fuel cell power installation. And this probably will be then approved in 2022. While in this moment there are not, is not in the IMO table, or at least as far as I know, any study on how to use hydrogen and other fuel cells on board of ship. So I think that to conclude, I think that it's a great opportunity, but there is still a lot to do in terms of application infrastructure. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Sochi. Very clear also from your side in terms of expectation in the next period, and it's also important to have a clear understanding and comparison between the different existing fuels and the different potential fuels in the near future, because they still really represent different stories that could be treated and managed very, very differently. And in order to even understand even better from the vessel's point of view, I would lead the floor to Massimo De Benedetti, that is the Vice President Research Innovation of Fincantieri. So this is really the point, the perspective from the shipyard point of view in using hydrogen. So Mr. De Benedetti, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Alexio, for having organized this meeting. Can you hear me? Of course, yes.
Yes.
Now, I'm trying to share my desktop. Can you see my presentation?
Yes, perfect.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Well, thank to Alexio and Circle for having organized this meeting, because as Alexio told us in his introduction, there is the need of a lot of this meeting to have a clear understanding of how we as an industry, as a whole industry, will manage the fuel shift that surely will occur in the next future. Well, I would like to share with you some key figures and facts about Fincantieri. Fincantieri today is a 6 billion global group. We have a backlog of about 38 billion, and it does mean that we have a backlog enabling us to work for the next 6 years. We are involved in shipbuilding in several segments. We build a cruise ship, we build mega yacht, we build naval ship, we build the ships for offshore exploration, and we also build ferries and mega yacht. We are a global group, as I told you before. We have 18 yards in 4 continents, and this allows us to build a ship all over the world, and this is an important advantage when we deal with government-driven program. I would pass to how we define our research and development strategy, our research and innovation strategy. We consider 4 main forces, and the force that we are talking about today is the one on the bottom right. It is the evolving regulation. We are talking about greening. We are talking about decarbonization, and in order to cope with this challenge, we identified 5 visions, and in particular, we identify as the main pillar of our research innovation strategy what we call the green ship. In this pillar, we are committed to develop efficient and sustainable solution for improving the efficiency of ship, and namely to improve the fuel, to improve the environmental friendliness of our ships. And specifically, we are committed in several policy initiative, the most important of which is the negotiation that we are carrying on with the European Commission for the definition of public-private partnership that is called the Zero Emission Waterborne Transport, that has the objective to demonstrate the feasibility of zero emission waterborne technologies for 2030. So what could like the future? How could like how the decarbonization could look like? Stefano gave us a very effective how to say a vision of the different options that we could have on the table. today we think that the most viable solution is the use of LNG as a sort of transition. Then, as the technology portfolio include several alternative fuels, like Stefano showed us, and these fuels are LNG, LPG, methanol, biofuels, hydrogen, ammonia, and all the stuff. So we think that we will have a sort of transition period where we could have several fuel options, and that implies that the industry will need to adapt to these different fuel options. And we think that in the long term, there will be the predominance of hydrogen or other hydrogen carrier, like, for example, ammonia. And why do we think this? Well, mainly because if we need really to decarbonize this business, we need to use fuel without any carbon atom inside. So that's the reason why we think that in the long term we will have a different combination of hydrogen and hydrogen carriers. But what I would like to underline is that there will be I don't know how much it will be long, but we will have a transition period where we will have the coexistence of different alternative fuels. Now, I would like to share with you a couple of R&I initiatives that we are carrying on in Fincantieri. The first one is what we call the Zeus, like the Greek god, that stands for Zero Emission Ultimate Ship. There is a prototype. This is a sort of it's not a sort, but it's a demonstration boat. It's a demonstration ship that we are building in our shipyard in Castellammare di Stabia. And as far as we know, it will be the first seagoing vessel that will be fueled exclusively by hydrogen. It will have a 130 kilowatt fuel cell facility powered with 5 pounds of hydrogen that will be stored in 8 metal hydride cylinders. And this propulsion system put together with a lithium-ion based energy storage system will allow this ship to sail for about 8 hours with zero emission at a speed of about 7.5 knots. I think that this is a remarkable result that the Italian industry is bringing forward, and that's an example of the approach that we're using for bringing forward this kind of initiative. It's an example of the open innovation approach that we are using, because this project involves several partners, universities, the CNR, also RINA for the definition of how we can operate this prototype in the sea trials. Then another project that I would like to mention is a project that will scale up what we will learn in the Zeus initiative, and where basically we are developing fuel cell systems, fuel cell generation system for cruise ships, where we want to scale up what we will learn in the Zeus initiative. Now, I would like to conclude with some very quick takeaways. First of all, in the medium term, fossil fuels will be the key energy carrier for this industry. We will use fuel with a progressive lower carbon content, but in the medium term, fossil fuels and internal combustion engine will be still there. In the long term, hydrogen and hydrogen carriers will play a key role, and will play the role of the game changers. But the viability of these technologies will require overcoming several barriers that Stefano mentioned before. First, we need a clear regulatory framework. As of today, we are not allowed to operate hydrogen fueled ship, for example. Then we need to understand how to integrate on a cost-effective basis all the machinery that we need on board. And Stefano, the chart you showed is very effective. We need to change dramatically the layout and how we'll install all the machinery we need on board. Then future availability of and prices of fuels, and then last but not least, incentive schemes able to reduce the gap in terms of cost of R&D, CapEx, and OpEx. And the last takeaways that we'd like to share with you is that all this stuff is not for free. Energy transition represents a huge engineering challenge that is not comparable to the challenge that fuel cell and hydrogen has overcome onshore. I mean, if a technology has demonstrated its viability of onshore, their viability on board is not taken for granted and is not for free. And here, the role of shipyards is key to ensure cost effectiveness and viability. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Mr. De Benedetti. It was also from your side a very clear understanding, specifically the takeaways at the end. They are very interesting, and I think we are going to have some questions around this. Specifically, the last one, I think it's key because sometimes it is natural to think, if you are not that much into the sector, I mean the shipyard sector, that okay, you have to adapt something, but you can manage one fuel or another one, but that is not true, and that is not true specifically probably for hydrogen itself. It's bringing on board in all sense a number of complications and issues. So let's move to a little bit from the vessel now to a port. And let's see, we are staying in the maritime sector, but we defocus a bit from the ship now and see how a port is already using R&D and support from R&D projects in general to develop first piloting, testing, and demonstration of hydrogen. So the port of Valencia is certainly one of the most advanced port in Europe in innovation in general, and energy is part of this. So I leave the floor to Joseph Sant-Argent, that is the R&D responsible for this project, that will give us some hints about H2 port. Joseph, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alexio, for inviting me to participate, and thank you to all the audience to attend. Let me share the screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, full screen, please. Perfect, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So as Alexio mentioned, I'm the internal coordinator for the H2 Ports projects in Fundación Valenciaport. This is mainly the index of the presentations. First, I will start with I promise a brief presentation about Fundación Valenciaport and why H2 Port projects fits perfectly in our strategy and our activity. Then I will talk a little bit about why hydrogen and why is interesting hydrogen in our strategy and also in Valenciaport strategy, and also in general why our port can be a key factor for the deployment of hydrogen economy. And I will finalize giving a brief description of the H2 Port projects, objectives, and give an update about where we are right now. Port of Valencia is located next to Valencia city, which is the third city in Valencia, and we move freight and passenger, mainly containers. This is the main cargo that we move, Ro-Ro cargo, and also passengers with the ferries connecting the islands and cruises vessels. We, Fundación Valenciaport, are the own knowledge center for the Valencia Port cluster, and we do that through three main activities. The promotion of innovation through the development of R&D projects such as H2 ports, and we do that from the beginning to the end, from the detection of opportunities in calls to the actual work and management of the projects. We share our knowledge from the port maritime sector and also the knowledge gained in the participation of projects in both training programs and consultancy work. And we also have like 2 transversal activities related to market intelligence and the support for the port community through social responsibility works. These are our knowledge areas, and there are many things to be done in a port, and we divide it in these specific areas in which H2 ports belong to the sustainability and energy transition area. In that area, we have moved from, we have participated in several projects. The initial projects were more related to the studies. Then we moved to studies and pilots, and we are now participating even in rollout projects. And we have participated in projects related to the use of alternative fuels in both the land and the seaside, in which the use of LNG in both terminals and vessels has been very important in several projects, such as the Game for Mosque, Game for Ship, current GS Hive. And H2 ports belongs to a type of project which includes both studies and pilots. And hydrogen fits perfectly in a zero emission strategy, which is can be pure zero emissions, which is a goal, which, for example, the Port of Valencia has. It has the goal of becoming a zero emission port in the next future. And this is an end of a strategy that started several years ago with the test of some other alternatives, such as the use of LNG, electricity, etc. Why hydrogen or why ports? Ports are a very interesting spot for the deployment of hydrogen because there are many opportunities that ports can give to hydrogen and hydrogen provide to ports. Ports want to become zero emission, and hydrogen technologies are a very attractive option for some of the uses inside the port, such as the cranes or terminal tractors. And that also gives the fact that they are captive fleets also give opportunity for the production of hydrogen. So it's a win-win situation. Hydrogen also appears as a potential fuel for vessels, maybe as a pure hydrogen or maybe e-fuels. Also, ports have not only captive fleets, but frequent visitors, such as trucks or trains. So, and ports are interesting places for the location of hydrogen supply for those applications. Also, some ports have industry next to the port, so and some industry are very interesting as a starter of the hydrogen economy. Ports also have in their plans, such as the plans of the Port of Valencia, to install renewable energy. So it makes a lot of sense to have hydrogen production. Hydrogen is also very interesting for importing energy from offshore power plants. And also, finally, ports, hydrogen will be transported when hydrogen economy exists through ports. So a lot of potential, and also ports can be as something in which the city next to the port see and uses and stimulates the future plans of the city to become more zero emissions through the use of hydrogen. So the use of hydrogen in ports makes a lot of sense. We have started that path through H2 port projects, in which a couple of uses will be tested in real life operation. There are 2 pilots and a third one which will solve the hydrogen supply during the test. Partners with Fundación Valenciaport, as act as a coordinator, and we have a really balanced consortium in which public authority, the Autoridad Portuaria de Valencia, research institutions like Centro Nacional del Hidrógeno, Athena, also the industry, and finally end users. All of them are represented, and I would like, all of them are really important, but I would like to highlight the importance of having the end users in the project, which is a guarantee that the project will have more chances to succeed. This is the project structure. It's very fast. 6 work packages, 2 of them of support, 3 dedicated to the pilots, so 1 of them more transversal to a lot of aspects which are not entirely technical. First of the pilots is the hydrogen supply, which we have 2 pilots, and each of them will be located in a different terminal, so the applications cannot exit the terminal. If the applications cannot go for the refueling have to go to the application, and this is our case. It will have a fixed part, which a buffer tank and a compressor that will receive the hydrogen from outside and will raise the pressure to the delivery pressure. And the high pressure hydrogen will be stored in the mobile part, which include the vessels, the high pressure vessels, and a dispenser. So the mobile part will go daily once to each terminal to do the refueling and for the start of operations. This pilot is being developed by the Centro Nacional del Hidrógeno, which is the work package leader. It is right now, the design is already completed, and they have started mounting the hydrogen refueling station, and it is expected to be finalized at the beginning of next year. This hydrogen refueling station will supply a reach stacker, which is a handling equipment that is capable of picking both empty and full containers, which is going to be developed by Hyster Yale, our industrial partner, who had some experience in the development of fuel cell equipment in the past for the test on a front loader in the port of LA. And this is going to be, the reach stacker is being defined in close collaboration with the end user, MSC and terminal. And right now is at the end of the design and starting the construction, and it is expected to be finalized right now at mid 2021. It will be tested for 2 years in real operation, the same as the yard tractor, which is going to be 4x4, which is the one which are the ones using in rural traffic. And the work package leader in this case is Athena, which is a research institution from Italy. Valar will be the fuel cell provider, and the end user of this application is Grimaldi. Right now they are ending the design, and the same case as the reach stacker, it is expected to be finalized on the date that we have right now at mid 2021. And in the same case as the reach stacker, they will be tested for a couple of years. So the last one, apart from the transversal work packages such as management or communication, is the market uptake and reach management that deals with everything not directly related to the development of the application, but very important, such as the definition of the logistics and the study of all the regulatory aspects. And finally, the economics of the solutions, and we'll analyze the results and try to find how it's best to deploy these solutions into real market solutions. So regarding the planning, we started in January 2019. Initially, it was a 4-year project involving 2 years of real piloting in real life applications. Due to the impact of COVID, we are going to have a little bit of delay. The piloting is expected to start at mid 2021, so that will involve that we will have to end a little bit later than expected. So we will go probably for 2023. This is just a brief description of the project. You can find more information in our webpage, which you also can subscribe to our newsletter. And we also try to be very active in social networks, in Twitter account and LinkedIn. And I'm also at your disposal. You have my email in the first slide if you want to contact directly to one of us. So that's pretty much it. I'm at your disposal to clarify any doubt that it may arise.
Thank you very much, Josep. Interesting to see how the application in ports, but not on a vessel, is definitely closer in terms of time. And of course, we are all curious to see the results of piloting this rich stacker and these tractors, because they are, of course, there are so many in terminals that could really contribute to decarbonize, waiting for other modes to be ready, H2 ready, let me say, like maritime, such as maritime transport. So last but not least, for sure, DG Move, that's the perfect end of the presentation in terms of having an understanding on how DG Move is shaping the policy in terms of fuels, in terms of alternative fuels in maritime transport, with a specific reference to FuelEU Maritime. So the floor is yours, Antoine.
Thank you, Alexio, and well, thank you for putting a lot of pressure on me, saying that I need to be the perfect end of already a series of 4 very good presentations. I would like to apologize to all the participants. I haven't prepared any PowerPoint because I sort of knew that the previous speakers will cover most of the points that would be relevant. So I rather would like to go through a number of bullet points together on what are the latest initiatives that we have on the promotion of alternative fuels in maritime transport and how it relates to hydrogen in particular. As you know, the Commission has adopted last December the European Green Deal, which is which sets all the environmental objectives of the Union for the new mandate, but it's also the new growth strategy. And in September, we have revised our climate targets with the publication of the new 2030 climate targets. What does it mean in reality is that if we want to reach our climate neutrality targets by 2050, international shipping in the EU needs to reduce its emission by almost 90% compared to the 2008 levels. And so that is the scale of the challenge we are facing. In practice, this translates into 2 priorities, and this is, I think, already something that Mr. Sochi has told us. Shipping must use less energy, so it needs to be more energy efficient, but it also needs to use a cleaner energy. And so the way we see it is that from a policy perspective, that requires a basket of measure. It's not only one instrument that will solve all the issues, but it's more different problems, different barriers that need to be addressed, and that requires this basket of measures. And that includes energy efficiency, it includes price signals, and it includes the issue of alternative fuels. Here, I actually would like to recall what Mr. Pansaki said in the beginning, and I think it was almost one of his first line, saying that an ecosystem was necessary. And I think this is also particularly important when we look at what is possible to do for alternative fuels. We are facing something where no single operator can address that issue on its own, because ramping up the use of cleaner energy requires coordinated action on the side of the suppliers, fuel production, on the side of the infrastructure, so the port facilities, the bunkering, all the power supply for the ships, and on the side of demand, so from the ship operators, the ship owners, making sure that there is sufficient demand to sustain the entire chain and the entire ecosystem, so to say, for these fuels. And this is very much the context where we look at the Fuel EU Maritime Initiative, which we have announced with this Commission work program. We intend to publish a proposal early next year, early 2021. And the idea here is to stimulate sufficient level of demand in the market to make sure that we can actually have a bigger uptake of sustainable fuels, avoid the carbon leakage, and very importantly, provide certainty on the pathway for reducing greenhouse gas emissions from shipping, and in particular, reducing greenhouse gas emissions from shipping using alternative sources of energy. We believe that this will create a strong boost for the use of also onshore power supply in ports. Different options are currently being considered as part of the better regulation process and the impact assessment, as you probably know, and you can find some information online in the Have You Say website on what was published earlier in the Inception Impact Assessment. We have also recently published the results of the open public consultation, so you will see that when we consulted the public here on the preferred approach, there was a large preference for a technology neutral approach, so something which was more goal-based compared to a more prescriptive approach, which would have implied a technology choice. In the consultation as well, there was also a clear preference for looking at a well-to-wake basis, so covering all relevant emissions, not only in combustion, but also during the production and the distribution of fuel. Earlier, Mr. Sochi mentioned the energy density, and the energy density, which was one of the challenges that we need to address, or that we will still face for the deployment of hydrogen. And it's true here that we need to recognize the differences that we have in the shipping sector. On shorter distances or in ports, lower energy density is probably sufficient, and that already opens additional decarbonization or zero pollution pathway, such as hydrogen, such as electric propulsion. But these are currently relatively limited to very sort of niche market segment, or very specific market segment, which have either low power requirements or the possibility to bunker frequently, or actually both. For other types of operation, the density that we currently have for those fuels is not yet probably sufficient to power the fleet as it is. And we all know that it's normal that the power needs and the constraints of a ferry or small ferry operating between a very short crossing and an ocean-going vessel with I don't know, 20-something thousand TEUs on board will be very different. But that also means that probably there is no one-size-fits-all solution for the fuel. And I think we've seen that in the presentation earlier, and when Mr. De Benedetti was saying we will see, at least in the medium term, different fuels that coexist in the fleet. Well, possibly that coexistence of different fuels will actually be a relatively long period of time, because it may well be that there are certain ship types or certain market segments that are more complicated to transfer to alternative power sources, and alternative power sources such as hydrogen than others. So, when I look back at the title of the conference, is Hydrogen the New LNG? Well, hydrogen has a role to play, and I think we've heard that already from all the previous speaker. So you'll hear that from me as well. But it is for the moment only when it is a mature solution. It is relatively limited, and in a way, LNG has also a role to play, and a role to play in the transition towards decarbonized gases, towards biogas, and towards also synthetic gases. And you know that could also be things that are done in the longer term in you know dropping fuel that could be gaseous or liquid fuel. And I think when we also during the consultation we did for the FuelEU Maritime, when we asked the maritime cluster what are the expectations for the deployment of alternative fuels by 2030 and between 2030 and 2050 and in 2050, this is also what we've seen, that the picture is much more diverse than one or two fuel choices, and it's clear that the more advanced fuel choice, including the hydrogen one, was more towards a long-term horizon. So what do we do in order to sort of support this and to promote the use of such fuels? As I said earlier, I think already panelists or previous speaker mentioned the need to have an entire ecosystem, and so that requires an overall approach. And I think also Mr. Pansaki mentioned already or recalled the publication of the hydrogen strategy in July, as well as the system integration strategy. And this clearly brings together the different strand of actions that we can put at European level, from research and innovation over production, infrastructure, and the international dimension. And for maritime transport here, hydrogen is clearly mentioned as a stepping stone for the production of synthetic drop-in fuels, which have the advantage of being able to be used with existing technology and infrastructure with certain adjustment. What else can we do? As I mentioned, we currently developing this FuelEU Maritime initiative, where the idea is really to provide the long-term certainty to facilitate the investment and provide a certain framework to encourage the ramping up of alternative fuels in maritime transport. But we also need to continue definitely the work which is currently done to strengthen research and innovation. And in this respect, the work such as the presentation that we've just heard, which based on from the fuel cells and hydrogen GU, but also the proposal from the on the waterborne public-private partnerships are definitely overall points. To continue working with the experts to ensure that we clearly understand what are the implications in terms of infrastructure, energy conversion, and including the elements that would be related to safety consideration and certification, bunkering protocols, and things like that. We therefore continue to very much work with the entire maritime cluster at large. So the ship owners, the operators, the ports, the providers, as part of the European Sustainable, in particular the subgroup that we have dedicated to sustainable alternative power for ships, with a view to exchange on the pathway to deploy alternative fuel in the future. Something like five I could say in how we see it's the scale of the challenge in front of us. It's not easy.
We cannot hear you very well now. We cannot hear you very well. We got some connection issues. Sorry, but let's see if let's try to go on. Otherwise, we close because it's you are freeze now.
Is it okay? Is it working better now?
I'm not sure.
Wait.
Let's try once
Is
more.
it working better now?
No, not really. At least
Yes.
for me,
Can you hear me?
No, yes and no. So not very well. So I don't know the others, but okay.
I know the connection is low for Antoine at this moment. Yeah, maybe we should.
Okay, let's move to Antoine. Thanks for your presentation. Let's move to a little bit of roundtable in which you could also, in a way, reply to my questions in order to finalize your speech in case. So I kindly ask the experts to be on stage with me. And I have a couple of questions from the audience, some of them a bit also provocative, but okay, let's see because they are not directly addressed to one of you, but let's see how to do it. The first one probably is more related to production of energy, so it may be a little bit more for Mr. Pantsakis. The question is the following. I mean, since the cost of electricity in North Africa is quite low, what's the most convenient way to produce hydrogen? To produce hydrogen in Africa and then transport to Italy by pipeline, or transport by maritime transport, but in form of liquid hydrogen or ammonia? Or is it better to move the electricity in a way and then produce hydrogen directly in Italy? So what's your opinion on that? And of course, the others could intervene. It's not directly related, but okay, let's first, Mr. Pantsakis.
Well, thank you for your question. Definitely, the solution is not producing green electricity in North Africa and then shipping it through undersea cables to Italy. The best possible solutions, according to our calculations, is to use the existing infrastructure and therefore produce renewable electricity in North Africa, transform it in green hydrogen over there, which, by the way, could be used by local industries, which is very important and sometimes overlooked, to transform local economies and infrastructures, and then use the existing infrastructures to ship it to Italy and to Europe. I think that an important point here to have in mind, however, is that this is when the infrastructure is available and where the distances are like the ones between Tunisia and Italy. It's very different instead when we start to look at the possibility of exporting green hydrogen from the Middle East across the world, which will also be a very interesting opportunity. And in that case, maritime transport becomes definitely into the picture, but it's already into the picture, for example, when it comes to the shipping between Australia and Japan. And it will also be between North America and Europe, as we already see it today.
Thanks, Mr. Pantsakis. Any other expert would like to comment on that, to add on that? Okay, let's move to the second one. Is it's for you, Mr. Sochi, but of course the others may have something. It is about let's say the time in which the IMO is moving. So the question is this the speed of the regulatory framework set by IMO is enough to match with the industrial push, industrial development, or we are seriously incurring the risk that everything could be ready, or without the sufficient regulatory framework, or everything in a way will be blocked by the fact that there is any clear regulatory framework?
It's a very, very difficult question to be answered. I don't know. Of course, the industry would expect always that the rules change faster, but I also think that technology will change and the application of hydrogen can be very different in the next years. So for sure, we need to consider that probably the rules will be needed to be revised in the next year in any case. But of course, especially for the shipping industry, to have a clear framework and a clear technology is very important. To build a ship, you require certain number of years, and you need to, normally you build it to keep working for 20 years. So the objective of 2030 and 2050 are not so far away when we talk about shipping, because it's an industry that requires long time. So we are confident that the rules will be there when we need it. So far, we are doing a lot of studies, and there is a lot of all the industry is looking at it. So I'm still positive, but we will see what happens.
Thanks. Any other comments on the speed of the regulatory framework? Okay, let's move to the third one. That is, I don't know to whom is going to be addressed. The question is very clear. Why not move or not push for moving from LNG to e-methane? So this is a little bit of so why not e-methane is not one of the options, at least that are considered in the frame, or at least not so well considered. Is there any production limitation, usability, or so whatsoever?
I can try to answer. It's one of the options, but e-methane, of course, it can be associated somehow to blue hydrogen. That is on the long term is not the solution, and in any case, it's require a new transformation of hydrogen into e-methane. That it's another way to lose efficiency. So I think that it's a matter of size in the market, but also considering the effect on the long term. When we said before, and Cosma also mentioned, the blue hydrogen is a solution for the mid-term or short term, but we need to look for solutions that are green completely. So I think that's why now the industry is more focusing on hydrogen directly.
Thanks a lot. Yes, Antoine.
Yes, no, I think, well, I think e-methane could well be part of the solution. I mean, it's probably not a single solution for everybody, but e-methane could also be part. And I mean, I take the point that was just made that it's an issue of looking at the efficiency of the overall production, but to balance that, we already have very much the infrastructure which is there and the machinery which is there as well. Because I think this is the complexity about developing a new fuel ecosystem, is that you need to find the right adequation between the supply, the distribution, and the usage. And for the moment, we have that for the liquid fuels. We are developing that for the gaseous fuels. How much can this be used for hydrogen as, you know, blending in the existing fuel? That is a very interesting solution. But if we are talking about pure hydrogen propulsion, do we actually require a new machinery and a new infrastructure? And how do we factor this in the deployment of those fuels? And so in all the relatively complex equation, de facto, the e-methane solution may actually be part of one of the pathways. I mean, it's, again, I think it's going to be a lot of almost individual or individualized pathway for different ship types, different trades, or different segments.
Thanks a lot, Antoine. Very clear answer in terms of the possibility to have e-methane. Last question is for all of you. It's just yes or no. We are a Circle currently leading an Horizon 2020 CSA on the ports of the future, and of course we are also discussing the port perspective about alternative fuels. So the target of the project is to have a look to the port in 2030. So yes or no, in 2030, are we going to see the first, let me say, medium-sized container vessels moved by hydrogen in a port or not? Yes or no? Mr. De Benedetti, you first.
I don't know if it will be a container vessel. I think that we can see some significant vessel fueled by hydrogen in some of our European ports. I don't know if it will be a container vessel. I would say that it would be quite difficult that it's a container vessel. But I think that in 2030 we will start to see some hydrogen fueled significant vessel in Europe.
Thanks. Is the same opinion for the others or still not?
Yes, I agree. In more than one port, I would say, I would add.
Joseph?
Yeah.
Valencia will be, you are saying that Valencia will be the first, right?
No, I just have one question. When we're talking about hydrogen, is hydrogen like liquid or compressed hydrogen, or something that uses hydrogen to be produced? If the question is hydrogen, that will fall in specific uses. If the question is about something that comes from hydrogen, I would say yes.
I see. Antoine?
Yeah, I think it's a tough question in a way, because if we had the definite answer, we will probably be sitting somewhere else and do a lot of investment in right now. But I think just one additional element is whether it is for propulsion only or whether it is to fuel certain power needs of the vessel, because a lot of vessels do not have only one engine and already are using different types of fuel. And we could also see hydrogen playing a role for certain application on a ship, even very large ships, as a support technology. And maybe one point, because I think the presentation from the Port of Valencia was very interesting in also all the different applications that we can have around the maritime sector. I'm also wondering whether hydrogen should be used to power electricity needs for when the ships are at berth. I mean, there are plenty of opportunities that we can sort of use to power the machinery in ports, to also power the fleets in ports, and I think we need to be open to all those developments and look at really the research which is ongoing and how to deploy that rapidly, because the scale of the challenge is relatively big and we need all the efforts.
Thanks a lot. I think we are perfectly in time, so great. Really thank you to all of you for the very valuable expertise you transmitted us, and I've learned a lot for sure, and I have clear that the right choice for the future is really a case-by-case situation in a way, from industrial point of view, that industrial in a broader sense, that it's not only the maritime industry, but even the gas industry or the production industry as well. So I learned really a lot. So thanks a lot. I think also for our participants was really useful. All the registration will be available later on the web and the social network for more reviewing the content. So thanks for the team, our team, for the organization. And this is not really the last one we are going to make it. Probably we are going to do much more deeper understanding and analysis in different projects in different formats. So, and hopefully also physically and not only virtually. So thanks a lot. Have a good evening, and stay tuned to our Connecting EU Insights, that we have also other events tomorrow and for the rest of the week. Good evening. Thanks a lot. Enjoy the evening.
Bye-bye. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.